Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 45 Reunion. O.W. Shizune Ne-chan. It hurts, Itai. Oh, stop being a pussy, Naruto-kun. It's only a damn needle. Shizune exclaimed in her sister mode, while Tsunade frowned at that. Oi Shizune, she exclaimed with that motherly tone of hers as the blonde medic stood up, now walking towards Naruto. Jiraiya snickered to himself as he saw Tsunade berating her daughter for being rough on her, Naru-chan. Yeah, she got her family back. Just wait till you meet Kushina Tsunade. Konoha. Hokage's office. You will meet your client downstairs in the waiting room. This is an easy A-rank mission, so I'm expecting it to go smoothly for you too. Try to return to the village as quickly as possible. The Godime Hokage, currently wearing a loose sleeveless sky blue kimono with a dark blue sash on her waist along with a maroon skirt covering up to her upper thighs, spoke with authority. She was currently sitting behind her desk, piles of papers laying on the table beside her while the light orange-hued sun rays pierced through the large windows behind her, dimly illuminating her office. Hi, Hokage-sama, Anko responded with a neutral expression on her face while a serious-looking Hana was standing beside her. Kushina stared at the two Junin, more like her little sisters as a sigh escaped her lips. And listen, don't try to show off or anything. Complete the mission as fast as you can and return. This time, some emotion seeped into Kushina's voice. Relax, Ne-chan. We are not kids anymore. And don't worry, we won't miss the chance to see Naruto-kun when he arrives, Hana uttered with a light grin, making the Hokage blush lightly in embarrassment of being caught so easily. Anyway, the redhead coughed to regain her composure as she spoke in her professional tone. You may leave now. Both Anko and Hana nodded as they turned to leave. See you in a few days, Ne-chan, Hana verbalized over her shoulder with a smile. And try not to heat up this place with Naruto-kun until we return, Anko articulated with a bright grin, making Hana snicker quietly as the duo quickly closed the door before a book slammed into it. What does that mean, Bane? A furiously blushing Kushina yelled anxiously as she sighed to herself, leaning back into her chair. The female Uzumaki closed her eyes. I miss him so much. Where are you, Naru-kun? She pondered, her hand on her heart when an image of his grinning face flashed in her mind. She opened her eyelids to chuckle softly as the redhead shook her head lightly. You just can't leave me now, can you, Naru-kun? Wherever I go, whenever I close my eyes, I only see you. Whenever I sleep, I dream of you. Whenever I smile, I think of you. Whenever I cry, I want to be in your arms. I really am hopelessly in love with you, aren't I? She thought with a giggle. Several days ago she had received news from Jiraiya that Naruto had fully recovered. It had made her almost jump off her seat in joy as tears of huge relief had cascaded down her cheeks. Though it also saddened her upon reading the letter further that her son had suffered emotionally too. And she knew that emotional scars would take time to heal. It doesn't matter though, I'll be there for him at every step, I'll give him all the love he needs. I'll be everything that he wants, Kushina thought with that patented Uzumaki determination as she smiled softly, now gazing outside through the windows. Tomorrow, he'll be coming back tomorrow. She squealed mentally as her heart started to beat faster. She couldn't wait to take him in her arms and kiss the living daylights out of him. She would remind him that his Ka-san, his Kushina-chan, would always be there for him, that he had people here who cared for him, who loved him. He didn't need to cry over that traitor. And Itachi. A frown took birth on her face, replacing her serene expression. You will pay. I will never forgive you for what you did to Naru-kun. First you, and then that bastard War Hawk. I swear on my Uzumaki blood that I'll hunt you two down personally, she thought with a cold look in her eyes, clenching her fists in anger. Naruto may have had persuaded her to forgive the elder villagers for ruining his childhood, but these two along with that masked man, they were definitely on her to-kill list. She didn't care if Itachi was her student, but he had crossed the line this time. Besides, even if she wanted or not, to her, as the Godime Hokage, he was a missing nin anyway. He was a threat to Konoha, to the village she had sworn to protect, but most importantly, he was a threat to the blonde she loved with all her heart. Shifting her mind off the bloodshed topics, the reflection in her violet orbs shimmered with extreme happiness when she remembered that Tsunade, her Ka-san, would be coming home tomorrow. It had been a month since she had seen her surrogate mother after all. The red head was brought out of her musings when the door was knocked gently. Turning her chair, she adopted a serious expression. Enter. The door opened for a black, raven-haired woman to enter the office, a small smile on her face. "Makoto-chan," Kushina exclaimed with a grin as she jumped off her seat to rush towards her best friend, taking the Uchiha in a tight hug. Makoto smiled warmly as she hugged her red-head friend back. "So, how was your first mission in such a long time?" The red-head asked with a giddy smile, slinging an arm around her friend's shoulder, making Makoto shake her head with a chuckle. "Kushi-chan, you're the Godime Hokage now. Act like one," the Uchiha matriarch muttered with a teasing smile, making the Hokage pout. "I'll act like I want to. And if the elders have any problem with it, I'll just kick their asses," she exclaimed while thumping her fist into her other palm, whereas Makoto just sighed in exasperation as she walked to sit on a chair in front of the Hokage's desk. Really, she's the same as ever. One would have thought that becoming the Hokage would make her more responsible, but no, the raven-haired Kunoichi thought while Kushina occupied her seat. "And how many times have I told you not to call me Kushi-chan?" she asked in annoyance, making Makoto raise her eyebrow, a mischievous glint entering her eyes. "Pardon, but Naruto-kun told me that you liked that name," she retorted as the redhead blushed in embarrassment. Well, I haven't told him yet. I told you that I don't like that name," the Uzumaki articulated with a HMPH, as Makoto leaned forward, placing her elbows on the desk, an amused smile on her face. "You haven't told him yet? Or could it be that you actually like that name only when Naruto-kun uses it?" What are you talking about, Datbane?" Kushina spoke loudly, a tomato-red blush on her face, making Makoto giggle at her expense. "Oh Kami, you actually do," she accused, laughing loudly as a vein popped on Kushina's forehead. "Shut up, Makoto-chan, or I will kick your ass," the red-haired Hokage muttered sweetly as the raven-haired Kunoichi stopped laughing abruptly, a mock expression of horror on her face. "Oh my Kami, I'm scared. Kushi-chan is going to kick my ass." Kushina's eyebrows twitched at that. She glared at her best friend, who smirked at her. "Are you forgetting, Kushi-chan, that I'm the Kawarimi no Kami? And last time we sparred, I think I was the one who won, right?" the Uchiha matriarch teased, making her smile dangerously. "Oh, is that so? Then why not do it again? 'Cause you know, I have the Sharingan too this time," Kushina said confidently, her Sharingan staring into Makoto's surprised onyx eyes. "Oh damn, I forgot she now has the Sharingan too," the Uchiha matriarch thought as she laughed nervously. Even she knew not to mess with her best friend, especially now that she too has the Sharingan. Though if they did fight while going all out, she knew that Kushina just had way too many aces up her sleeve. Her ninjutsu, taijutsu, kenjutsu and fuinjutsu were already strong enough, and earlier Makoto used her famed substitution techniques in conjunction with her genjutsu to fight her best friend on equal terms, but now with the Sharingan, she knew that Kushina would be a devastating opponent. She was sure that her genjutsu must have been improved by leaps and bounds now. Anyway, the mission went well," she replied, making Kushina smirk victoriously before she grinned lightly at her friend. "But that client was a bloody pervert. He kept staring at my ass," Makoto spoke with a frown as she crossed her arms in front of her chest, making Kushina giggle. "Wow, seems like you've still got it, Makoto-chan," she verbalized, making the black-haired Kunoichi pout. "But it's not fair that you get to skip the 12 years of your life while I only skipped 6 or 7, this made Kushina sweat drop. Talk about being pessimistic, she doesn't care about the fact that she was brought back from the dead. Anyway, Naruto-kun and Tsunade-sama would be returning tomorrow, right?" Makoto asked with a bright smile, making the Hokage nod in excitement. "Yup, Ka-san and Naru-kun would be returning tomorrow. I'm so happy, Makoto-chan. It's like I've fully got my family back." Makoto's smile turned a bit sadder as she averted her gaze, rubbing her forearm softly. It seems she still hadn't gotten over it. Itachi, her eldest son, had murdered her family, her whole clan, years ago. Everything she had, it was stripped away from her in one night. But still, they did say that Itachi didn't do that of his own free will. He did that, to protect the village, Makoto thought. Her smile now vanished as she stared at her lap. Makoto. She lifted her head to gaze into Kushina's concerned violet orbs as she offered her best friend a soft smile. Are you all right? The Hokage asked softly, making her nod. Yeah, I am. It's just that, I'm still not over it, Kushina. No matter how hard I try, that night, those memories, they... Makoto took a deep breath as she pulled back her incoming tears, closing her eyes while Kushina averted her own gaze, sadness lurking in them. Upon her orders, Makoto was still kept in the dark about what had happened regarding Itachi and Naruto a week ago. It hurt her very much to lie to her best friend, but she had to do it for Makoto's sake. The Uchiha still hadn't gotten over what had happened to her clan, to her family. Kushina didn't want to burden her best friend with such heartbreaking news. She knew it would break Makoto. I'm sorry, Makoto. You may hate me for this, but it's for your own good. I will definitely tell you in the near future, but not now, the Godime Hokage thought as she nodded to herself while Makoto seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. Kushina's eyes softened as she gazed at the broken look on her friend's face. Come on. Standing up from her seat, she walked around her desk to gently pull her friend to her feet. Where? Let's just go for a walk. Kushina spoke with a smile as she created a shadow clone, ordering it do the paperwork. Makoto sighed as she just walked in tow with her friend. She knew the stubborn Uzumaki. If she wanted to stroll around with her, then she wouldn't leave her until the Uchiha agreed. Outskirts of Konoha. A bit away from North Gate. Hurry up, Ero Sennin. We're almost there. Naruto spoke in irritation as he walked in front of the group, an unconscious Hinata in his arms. How many times have I told you not to call me that? Jiraiya's equally annoyed voice came from behind, who currently was carrying an unconscious Tayuya in his arms. Tsunade sighed as she kept walking along with Shizune. It had been like this the whole way, the two just kept fighting over trivial things. Seriously, she could understand Naruto, but Jiraiya too kept acting like a kid. Hey, you call yourself super pervert yet you can't accept a simple name which suits you. The blonde spoke with a smirk, his trenchcoat flowing with the light breeze while Jiraiya's eyebrow twitched at that. He grumbled under his breath while Shizune quietly snickered to herself. After being healed by Tsunade, Naruto had insisted that they go to Konoha right away since the Akatsuki could still be searching for him, that an Hinata and Tayuya needed to be admitted into the hospital where they could rest safely. The blonde Jinchuriki however still wasn't fully healed yet. His whole upper body was bandaged along with his earlier broken wrist. The bandages however showed signs of only outward injuries, but his body had suffered internally too. Mainly because of the poison in Ayumi's Yuki. His muscles were still torn in several places but they were already being healed by his chakra, though at a very slow rate. Shizune too had her whole right hand bandaged, through which Gurren's crystal spear had completely pierced through. Tayuya's whole upper body, like Naruto, was bandaged duo to Sasori's Senbon, whereas Hinata's stomach area was bandaged, though it was mostly healed now due to Tsunade. So, the only uninjured ones in the group were Tsunade and Jiraiya, not a surprise for an onlooker considering both were one of the legendary Sannin. Hey Naru-chan, how are you feeling now? Tsunade asked as she stepped forward, a look of concern on her face making him smile at her. I'm fine, Ka-chan, but don't you worry about me. I'll heal completely in a few days. You just concentrate on the surprise waiting for you just ahead of us, he uttered with a grin making the medic Sannin pout. How am I supposed to concentrate on something when I don't even know what it is? And why can't you tell me of this surprise now? She asked eagerly, making him shake his head as the blonde tightened his jaw, trying not to laugh. Nope, you'll have to wait, Ka-chan, he snickered as Tsunade just sighed in defeat. Really? Uzumaki and their stubbornness, it was legendary. And oh yeah, Shizune-chan, it's a surprise for you as well, he verbalized over his shoulder, making the black medic's eyebrows lift in genuine surprise. For me too, she asked. Yep, just you wait, Jiraiya articulated with mirth in his voice as they neared the gates. Naruto lowered his head as he gazed at the unconscious face of Hinata, his lips curving upwards in a soft smile. So, Sensei is still the Hokage, Jiraiya? Tsunade asked over her shoulder as she walked beside Naruto, who just chuckled softly to himself while the Toad Sannin smirked in amusement. No, the Godime Hokage has already been appointed. That's the surprise anyway, he replied, making the blonde medic squint her eyes in thought while Shizune too was confused. Naruto however got an idea as he handed Hinata over to Tsunade. What are you doing? The slug Sannin asked in confusion when the blonde Jinchuriki lifted his hand to put his index and middle finger on his side neck. Tsunade's eyes however widened when she noticed a red seal on his skin. Kai, Naruto softly muttered as he activated the Uzushio seal, a warm smile on his face. Konoha. With Kushina and Makoto. Makes you remember our own childhood days, huh, Makoto-chan? Kushina spoke in a low tone with a smile, the duo currently sitting on a bench as they watched children playing in the park. A cool breeze was gently flowing across them as Makoto nodded with her, a reminiscent smile on her face. Hi, we used to have so much fun, huh? Back then, no responsibilities, no goals, no duties, nothing, just our own little world, she uttered, her hands in her lap. Kushina wrapped an arm around her shoulder, pulling in her friend. Makoto sighed as she rested her head on her best friend's shoulder, the sun now setting down. Don't worry, Makoto, everything will be all right, Kushina whispered with a smile as she comforted her friend who just nodded back as she watched the children playing with a sad smile on her face. Hey Ka-san. Kushina's eyes widened in shock when she heard a familiar voice, the Uzushio seal on her neck now glowing red. The grip on Makoto's shoulder loosened as she lifted her trembling right hand to activate the seal. Kai, she whispered softly, as if, still in a daze. Her eyes were now glossy. He couldn't be, could he? But the seal was supposed to work only within a limited distance, he had to be. Naru-kun, she telepathically asked in a quivering voice while Makoto turned her head to gaze at Kushina in confusion. Kushina, she asked, who just concentrated on the link. Kushina however heard nothing but silence, making her sigh. I must be hearing things, the redhead thought sadly as she shook her head, wiping her eyes. Just as she was about to deactivate the seal. The one and only, Kushina-chan. Makoto watched in confusion as Kushina's eyes widened in shock again as tears began to leak down her cheeks. Kushina, what's wrong? The Uchiha matriarch asked in concern as she squeezed her friend's shoulder, who just shook her head, wiping her cheeks quickly. Naru-kun, is that Yutbane? Kushina asked anxiously, her heart beating rapidly. Could it be that Anko was playing another prank on her? She too had the Uzushio seal after all. And if this was a prank, only Kami saved that woman from her wrath, little sister or not. Hey, you alright? Makoto nudged her friend gently when she noticed the glowing seal on Kushina's neck, a look of realization coming onto her face. Must be talking to Anko about something, but why is she crying? She thought. Yep, we've just entered through the north gate, Datbeo. His excited voice reverberated through her body as her lips curled upwards into a bright megawatt smile. Yeah, Makoto squealed when she was suddenly pulled to her feet by her best friend. Kushina, wah, no time to explain, Makoto-chan. Let's go, Datbane, the anxious Hokage uttered with a grin as the duo dissolved into water. Our Hokage, sure is impulsive, huh? A woman in her mid-30s spoke to her husband who had come to take their children. The man, a Junin, chuckled as he wrapped an arm around her wife. Hee, of course, but things are never dull around her, Datbane. The two burst out in laughter at the Junin's attempt at their Hokage's mimicry. Konoha. North Gate. Now what are we waiting for, Naru-chan? Tsunade asked with a sigh, Hinata resting in her arms while the group was currently standing just outside the gate. Naruto had a foxy grin on his face as he just continued to stand there, his eyes closed as the blonde shuddered in anticipation of his latest prank. This has to be my best prank, Datbeo. He snickered to himself while Jiraiya too had an equally stupid grin on his face, Tayuya in his arms. Can't you tell us what the surprise is now, Naruto-kun? Shizune uttered with a pout, making him shake his head excitedly. Just a few more seconds, Ne-chan. He exclaimed over his shoulder, making her sigh. Really? Sometimes he was a handful. How big the surprise could be that he was making them stand just outside the gate like idiots. Even the guards were staring at them in confusion, waiting for them to enter. Oh he, this should be good, Ayumi chuckled, eating popcorn as she prepared herself for the upcoming drama fest. The new Hokage is coming to greet us. The whiskered blonde declared with a bright grin as he could feel Kushina drawing closer with his Uzushio seal. They could tell each other's location within a limited distance after all. I wonder who that is, Tsunade muttered with a bored expression on her face. Right now, after being emotionally drained and having healing these three teens, she wanted nothing more than to just snuggle her face in a comfy pillow and sleep into the oblivion sharing Shizune's thoughts. Here she comes. Turning to the slug Sanin, his grin only widened, something which sent chills down Tsunade and Shizune's spine. That grin, it was an indicator of one of his grand pranks nearing success. And I present to you the most pleasant surprise of the millennium, our new. His voice trailed while Jiraiya was now shivering in anticipation. He could say that he was now honestly enjoying one of his godson's pranks for once. Tsunade and Shizune though sported skeptical expressions on their faces when the blonde prankmaster lifted his right hand to point his index finger, with a jerk, at an empty spot inside the gate. Godime Hokage. Splash. They turned their heads to see swirling water which soon formed two figures, one of which was already dashing towards them. Naruto-kun. Everyone saw a familiar red blur before it tackled the blonde Jinchuriki, lifting him off his feet as the duo slid on the ground. Ow ow, ahaha, Ka-san, easy there. I'm still hurt, Naruto exclaimed, his eyes closed as he laughed a bit painfully while Kushina hugged him tightly to her face buried in his chest. The redhead's eyes were currently closed as she snuggled into his warmth, making sure that he was right there in her arms oblivious to the world. The blonde's eyes opened in surprise when he felt wetness on his dark blue sweatshirt, having discarded his damaged Junin-like vest. A warm smile took birth on his face as he hugged her back. "You're back, Bane," she exclaimed, her voice muffled making him grin lightly. "Oh, of course I'm back. I'd never leave you," he replied with a chuckle when she lifted her head, her eyes reddish while her cheeks were wet. Her ecstatic violet orbs met excited oceanic pools as her soft hands began to cup his cheeks, her eyes shimmering with intense happiness. Naruto's smile softened as he placed his hand over hers. "I missed you, Ka-san," he whispered as her lips curled into a soft smile, her lower lip trembling. Here he was, in her arms again. The last time she had seen him, he was on a hospital bed, fully bandaged and hanging on for his life. His face was pale, and now, he was glowing, full of life. Those electric blue eyes enchanting as always to her, making her swoon inwardly. Oh, how beautiful they were. She had missed those eyes, those whiskers, that heart-melting smile of his, that damn foxy grin of his. She didn't want to act this excited upon his return. In fact, Kushina had planned it all out on what she would do when he returned. She knew that she would act formally when they would meet either in her office or at the North Gate, that she would just act like a Hokage and offer him a smile. Though she had planned that the moment they were alone, she would pounce on him. But he was supposed to come tomorrow. Him returning now, was such an exciting surprise that she couldn't hold herself. He was her baby, her lover, she loved him with all heart. Consequences of not acting your rank, be damned, this was a happy moment. Kushina started to lean in as she caressed his cheek with her left hand with the other one sifting through his blonde locks. Naruto, lost in the moment, too started to lean in as he parted his lips. "Naruto-kun, Tsunade is still here," Ayumi warned, making his half-lidded eyes snap open as he turned his face sideways leading into Kushina kissing his cheek. The redhead opened her eyes in surprise. "Naru-kun," she spoke in confusion while the blonde turned his head back to smile at her, before averting his gaze to a specific spot behind her. Kushina, her violet eyes widened upon hearing a familiar voice. Getting off of Naruto, she turned her head back to see a shocked Tsunade staring at her, along with Shizune of course, while Makoto and Jiraiya were smiling at her in amusement. Naruto stood up as he dusted off his trenchcoat. He smiled sadly upon noticing the tears freely streaming down Tsunade and Shizune's cheeks. Kushina however smiled at them as she found herself getting nervous at being stared at so intensely. "Hey there, Ka-san," she greeted, a soft angelic smile on her face while Tsunade stood stunned, not knowing how to react, what to speak. She was just, no words could imagine what she was currently feeling. "Ka-san, can't you be a little more expressive? You may be meeting her after only a month, but Ka-chan hasn't seen you for 12 years. Just a few seconds ago, she thought you were dead," the blonde pointed out in a reprimanding tone, making the Uzumaki redhead rub the back of her head as she laughed sheepishly. "Ah ha ha, yeah, you're right, Tabane. But she spoke hesitantly, not sure what to do. Naruto however sighed as he turned his pupils back towards his surrogate mother. "Well, Ka-chan, as you can see, Ka-san is alive." Makoto giggled quietly to herself at the Ka-chan and Ka-san mix-up. "Wow, this is going to be good, he has two mothers now. Ka-chan and Ka-san," she thought in amusement, now watching Kushina's "I don't know what to do" expression with mirth in her eyes. But how?" Tsunade choked out as her warm tears fell on the ground, the blonde Sannin taking a startling step back. "Weren't you dead?" Shizune stuttered, still not being able to come over her shock. Kushina however just grinned sheepishly. Well, that's a kinda long story, you know." Naruto rolled his eyes as he started to push his lover towards the astounded Sannin. What are you doing, Naru-kun?" she stammered. "I want a happy reunion and it's weird with you two just staring at each other," he spoke sternly as now Kushina and Tsunade stood in front of each other. Walking around the red head, he gently took Hinata in his arms from Tsunade. "There, now hug each other," he ordered, making Kushina look at him nervously before turning her head back. The red head smiled softly at Tsunade. "Ka-san, it's me, I'm really alive," she muttered while the blonde medic lifted her trembling hand to cup her cheek. Kushina," she sniffed, trying to hold back some tears while the female Uzumaki smiled at her, placing a hand over hers. Without wasting another breath, Tsunade wrapped her arms around her stepdaughter. Her eyes were closed as drops of pearly liquids cascaded down her cheeks. "Ka-san, too tight," Kushina muttered, her cheeks red in embarrassment as she hugged her stepmother back. "Yo, you're really alive," Tsunade exclaimed, her head resting on the Godime Hokage's shoulder as she sifted her hands through her adoptive daughter's long red hair. "Of course I am, I would never leave you all," Kushina mumbled with a smile, her eyes half-lidded in content. Tsunade leaned back quickly to again stare at her face. The Sannin bit her lower lip as she tried to hold back tears. "Why you really are," she couldn't complete as a choked sob escaped her lips while Kushina just smiled at her shyly, surprising Makoto and Jiraiya since that was something they rarely saw on the fiery Uzumaki's face. "Wow, she never ceases to amaze me with her beauty." Even Jiraiya had to admit, Kushina was someone even a pervert could swoon over just by staring at her face. Naruto sure was a lucky bastard. The redhead however, hugged Tsunade gently as she comforted her mother. There, easy there, Ka-san, you don't need to cry. I'm here now," she whispered soothingly while Naruto smiled at the scene, his heart swelling with joy. Turning his head, he noticed Shizune standing there with a teary smile on her face. Walking towards her, he wrapped an arm around her shoulder, gently bringing her towards the hugging duo. "Hey, you're forgetting someone," Naruto said with teasing smile as he tapped on Tsunade's shoulder. Kushina's smile widened upon noticing Shizune staring at her with a smile, the black-haired medic's own tears falling off her chin. "Ah, Shizune-chan," Kushina whispered as she walked forward to take her in a tender hug. Shizune hugged her back tightly, choked sobs escaping her lips. "N-ne-chan." Her muffled voice came while a lone tear slipped down Kushina's cheeks. It warmed her heart that they cared for her so much. Tsunade had a bright smile on her face as she wiped her tears. Walking towards Naruto, she grinned widely, pinching his whiskered cheeks playfully. "Ow, Ka-chan, they are sensitive to Bao," he muttered, now nursing his slightly bruised cheek with a pout while Tsunade draped an arm over his shoulder. "So this was your surprise, huh? You brat," she exclaimed, rubbing her fist over his head making him complain while Jiraiya stared at the scene with a soft smile on her face. "Honestly, this is the happiest I've seen her since Dan died," he thought while Makoto walked towards him. "So how was your mission, Jiraiya-sama?" she asked with a smile making him grin. "Smooth, Makoto-chan," he exclaimed with a nice guy pose making her giggle. Inwardly however, he cautioned himself on not to tell her of this mission, which was to let Tsunade heal an injured Naruto. Kushina had already sent him a message that upon her orders, what happened regarding Itachi was an S-rank secret. They were not supposed to tell this to anybody, especially not to Makoto. To her and the village, they had went on a mission to retrieve Tsunade, and that was it. Looking at those two, it doesn't look so smooth to me, she pointed out, making the Toad Sanin's grin falter before he suddenly adopted a serious expression. Well, to tell you the truth, we had a run-in with two of the Akatsuki members along with Orochimaru, he spoke in a low tone, making her eyes. Was Itachi. Her voice trailed while Jiraiya shook his head. No, Itachi wasn't amongst them. We barely escaped, and frankly, it's thanks to Naruto, he spoke while staring at his godson who was begging Tsunade to leave his head. Naruto-kun, Makoto asked in surprise as she glanced at the whiskered blonde. He fought one of them, an S-rank nin. She asked with wonder in her voice, making the Sannin smirk as he nodded, a proud expression on his face. Yeah, he faced one of them one-on-one, and even managed to pull out a draw, he told her, this time making her freeze in shock. Well, she did hear Kushina say Naruto was exceptionally strong for his age, or rather a prodigy of even greater caliber than Itachi. But to take on an S-rank nin of Akatsuki and manage to pull out a draw. How much strong you really are, Naruto-kun, she thought in awe. Yosh, now this calls for a party at Ichiraku Ramen. Kushina pumped her fist, making Makoto sweat drop while Naruto had stars shining in his eyes as he was in front of the red head in a flash. Oka-sama, you truly are the best. He spoke with a dreamy grin, making Kushina blush, her hand encased in both of his hands while Tsunade chuckled at their antics. Okay, we'll have that party tonight. For now, let's just take care of these two first and get done with the important things, Jiraiya spoke, making Tsunade nod as she glanced at Hinata and Tayuya. Kushina adopted a serious expression as she gazed at her two unconscious Chunin. Well, she had decided that Tayuya was fit to start with the Chunin rank anyways. I'll explain later, Ka-san. She whipped her head to notice Naruto smiling at her, making her smile back as she sneakily held his right hand, a look of longing in her eyes. Leaning in, he gently whispered in her ears. You're looking gorgeous, Kushina-chan, his voice sensual, making her blush furiously as she fidgeted in her position, her inner regions getting wet at that. It had been a week since they had any activity. Don't do that, Naru-kun. Tsunade Ka-san is still here, we have to be careful until we tell her, she spoke through the Uzushio seal, making him grin lightly. But I like teasing you like this, it's adventurous. He exclaimed, making her sigh as she smiled at him, that loving look in her eyes whenever she stared at him. Oi, come on, you two love birds, or else Tsunade-sama might get suspicious. The two instantly jumped apart to see Makoto giggling quietly at their expense. Makoto-chan, Kushina exclaimed with a huff while Naruto smiled at seeing the Uchiha. Walking towards her, he gently hugged her, surprising both Kushina and her. I'm glad to see you all healed up, Makoto-chan, he spoke with a warm smile while the slightest shade of pink adorned Makoto's cheeks, whereas Kushina had a pout on her face. Well, she was possessive after all. Ah, it's good to see you too, Naruto-kun, Makoto uttered with a smile as she hugged him back. All right, that's enough, let's just go, Kushina exclaimed as she pushed herself in between the two, pulling on Naruto's arm to get going. Why, Kushi-chan, jealous? Makoto teased, winking at Naruto. Kushina, however, adopted a dark shade of red as she whipped around. Who's jealous, Datbane? I'm not. Let's just go, we can't be standing here all day now, she verbalized, making Naruto, Makoto and Ayumi snicker at her expense. Oi, let's get going, you guys. The trio turned their heads upon Jiraiya's voice to see Tsunade, Shizune and him already on the move. Later, Konoha, around 9 p.m., Ichiraku ramen stand. The usual Oji-san, both Kushina and Naruto exclaimed at the same time. The duo looked at each other before grinning sheepishly. Sitting beside them were Tsunade, Jiraiya, Makoto and Shizune. Coming right up, Chuki's voice came from the back while Ayame, who was ecstatic to see Naruto again, took the orders of others. Oh, where are those four, Ka-san? Naruto asked in curiosity. He was dying to meet the Fire Queens, especially Anko. Kushina, however, gave him an apologetic smile. Well, Anko and Hana just left today on an A-rank mission. Kurenai too is out on a solo B-rank mission. They would return in a day or two though, the Hokage replied, having used a shadow clone who was handling the paperwork right now. Ah, I remember those 4 little brats. The 4th one, it was Yugao, right? Tsunade asked with a smile, sitting on the other side of Naruto, making Kushina nod with a smile. Hi, currently she's on patrol duty around the West Gate. This made Naruto's smile drop a bit, he really wanted to see her. Oh well, I'll catch up with her later tonight, he thought with a nod. The blonde was currently dressed in civilian clothes. Shifting his gaze, he blushed lightly upon noticing how beautiful Kushina was looking in her purple kimono with pink sakura petals on it. And the red lipstick complemented her hair beautifully. Really, even without the makeup, her serene beauty was to marvel at every time. Can't ignore Makoto-chan too, he thought before shifting his eyes towards the other side, where Makoto was conversing with Shizune, with Jiraiya strangely being quiet. Makoto too, having a dark blue lipstick with a red kimono, light pink roses printed on it, was looking gorgeous. He had to say that the eyeliner and mascara was really suiting her, her curled and thick eyelashes pulling him in. Noticing him staring at her, Makoto winked at Naruto, making the blonde blush as he averted his gaze. Damn it, way to go and embarrass myself, he thought while Ayumi chuckled in amusement, he really was cute. They were currently celebrating Tsunade's return, with Kushina having another reason for it, her, Naru-kun's, recovery. She was pleasantly surprised to see him act all normal, his goofy self. Frankly, Kushina was expecting for Naruto to be a bit emotionally unstable after what had happened with Itachi. But here he was, grinning like crazy and enjoying himself. Just after watching him smile at her, having him grin at her, all her worries were flushed away instantly. She knew that he was her Naruto, and that the blonde hadn't changed one bit. He was still the goofy and sexy prankmaster who she loved unconditionally. However, there were other things for her to worry about. Jiraiya had briefly informed her about their face-off against Orochimaru and Akatsuki. He hadn't told her much, just that they had to face them and that they were able to escape, thanks to Naruto's idea. She also had to explain to Tsunade about how she was alive. Though, to her relief, Jiraiya had already filled in Tsunade about the history between Itachi and Naruto, the Jinchuriki's rinnegan and all. There were many things to talk about, many questions to be answered, many problems to be solved, but what the hell? She intended to enjoy this moment to its fullest. Here it is, the usual. Chuki spoke as he brought in several bowls along with a yame to set them in front of Kushina and Naruto. Oh Kami, Naruto whispered as he inhaled the heavenly scent of his miso ramen, with Kushina doing the same with her salt ramen. Tsunade just chuckled as she gazed at the ramen-obsessed duo. Itadakimasu. Really, he's just like her, the slug Sanin thought as she smiled at them fondly. Tsunade, noticing something strange, turned her head when her eyes widened in realization. That's right, he's awfully quiet, she thought while staring at Jiraiya's thoughtful-looking face. So, what perverted fantasies is your mind coming up with right now? Tsunade asked with a teasing grin, effectively snapping the toad Sanin out of his trance-like state as he chuckled at her sheepishly. Nothing, just thinking about some things, he answered, making her nod with a solemn expression on her face. She knew what he was probably thinking, that they had too much on their plates anyway. A mischievous smile graced her lips as she turned to Chuki. Oi Chuki, bring some sake will ya? Oh, wait, bring the one made from omachi rice. She cheered, making Jiraiya and Shizune look at her with suspicious eyes while Naruto and Kushina were engrossed in eating their ramen. Coming you. Wait, just bring the amazake, Jiraiya intervened, making Tsunade turn to him. Oh come on, that doesn't even affect you, it's a low alcohol sake. The slug Sanin exclaimed with a sigh when Shizune spoke. We are not going to take any chances, especially when Naruto-kun is with you. Kami knows what I had to witness the last time you two were drunk. Shizune exclaimed with a sigh, making Tsunade stiffen at that as she glanced back to see Kushina talking with Naruto, both of them lost in their own world as they devoured the bowls in front of them. Oi Shizune, keep it down will ya? We don't want Kushina tea. Naruto got drunk with Tsunade-sama. Makoto exclaimed in shock as silence ensued in the stand while the slug Sanin began to sweat bullets. Jiraiya was whistling innocently while Shizune began to laugh nervously. What? Tsunade turned to see Kushina glaring at her as she too began to laugh nervously while Naruto pretended to play innocent as he just kept eating his ramen. Ahehe, You see Kushina, it was Ju. How can you be so irresponsible, Bane? Kushina exclaimed with a frown, making Tsunade lower her head while Tsuki placed Shizune and Makoto's orders in front of them. Tsunade's eyebrows however began to twitch when she heard Jiraiya quietly snickering to himself. Just you wait, you perverted bastard. I'm talking to you, Ka-san. You can't have Naru-kun drinking like that. He's just 12 years old. The redhead argued with a frown while Naruto just kept eating his ramen. Well, he does look like he's 18, Tsunade pointed out sheepishly. That's beside the point, Datbane. Kushina retorted, making the Sannin flinch while Naruto practically had his face in his bowl, furiously eating away his ramen, wanting to avoid his mother, as well as his lover's wrath. And you, Naru-kun? The Jinchuriki jerked back as Makoto giggled lightly at his nervous expression. You see, Ka-san, that time I was trying to learn the drunken fists, I just borrowed some sake from her. He quickly blurted out as the angry expression on Kushina's face was quickly replaced by confusion. Drunken fist? The female Uzumaki asked, making him nod with a grin while Tsunade breathed out a sigh of relief. Way to go, Naru-chan, you sure are a prankster, Tsunade thought as Ayame set down her and Jiraiya's bowls. Yeah, you see, Ka-san, I think I have some hidden talent when it comes to drunken boxing. Naruto lied smoothly, making Kushina smile brightly at him. Really? That's great, Naru-kun. Jiraiya shook his head at the mother-son antics. Really, Kushina, you're still so naive, he thought before slurping up some ramen. So Naruto-kun, Kushina told me that you're really strong. Wanna spar some time? Makoto asked with a teasing smile as the blonde turned towards her. You bet I am. And sure, I'll beat you, he uttered with a challenging smile while Kushina was surprised at his proclamation. Earlier he avoided any spar with her, she knew that he was afraid to face a cage-level kunoichi like her. He used to avoid training with her, well, she did beat him pretty badly in their training from time to time. But, how did he get so confident all of a sudden? She thought while Makoto smirked back at him. Oh really? Well, we'll see that in a few days. I'll fight you when you're at your best, you should rest for a while now, she spoke, making him nod as he smiled at her before turning back to his ramen. Hey, the brat has grown. I guess that exposure to those Akatsuki members had a deep effect on him, Jiraiya thought with a smirk. Well, I'm sure Naru-chan is going to be a tough opponent. Tsunade cheered while slinging an arm over her fellow blonde's shoulder, making him chuckle. Kushina smiled as she watched Naruto, his smile, the look in his eyes. He really, has grown, she thought when she felt something, her cheeks being tinted a light shade of pink. She turned to Naruto with a surprised look on her face to see him talking with Tsunade. What is he? His hand, the redhead thought, feeling Naruto's hand massage her thighs over her purple kimono. She lowered her head in an attempt to hide her blush as she grabbed Naruto's hand gently, trying to pry off his hand. The blonde however didn't budge as he continued to rub her thighs. Kushina's breathing began to go a little heavy as she sat there, her head lowered while she clenched her hands into fists. His hand, it felt so good, she really was dying for his touch. She wanted him, to touch her, to explore her body, to be inside her. Kushina closed her eyes as her nether region began to get wet. Stop it, Naru-kun, she thought when he started to rub her bare thighs through the slit of her kimono, the blonde working under the counter. Kushina bit back a moan. It feels so good, she thought, her head lowered as she again, in a poor attempt to stop him, put her hand over his. Naruto however continued to talk with Tsunade on the other side while she tried to control herself. She was getting extremely horny now, and he had just touched her thighs only. But his touch, it's so. She mused, her soft skin being rubbed over by his masculine hand. Enjoying yourself, Kushi-chan? Kushina's eyes widened upon hearing Naruto's sultry voice. Bringing her trembling left hand up to her neck, she activated the Uzushio seal with a shaky command of, Kai. En Naru-kun, don't do it. Ka-san is Heartbane, she exclaimed when his hand began to rub her inner thighs, making her moan inaudibly. Now why should I stop? It's been a while since we did it. Naruto inwardly spoke teasingly while Ayumi was cheering him on. That's my foxy pervert, show her what you've learned from me. The female Biju exclaimed with a perverse grin. Kushina's grip on his hand tightened as he began to rub her pussy through her panties. Ah, and Naruto, don't. Her breathing was coming in light pants now as he rubbed her panties, which were surprisingly soaking wet now. Wow, you're this wet already, his surprised voice came over the telepathic link while Kushina involuntarily parted her thighs, giving his hand more space to work in. Ero, baka, she inwardly mumbled when he inserted a finger into her pussy lips through her panties, making her bite her lower lip harder as she held back her moans. How does it feel, Kushi-chan? He worded sensually, turning her on even more as her body began to shake from the uncontrollable hormones. It's wonderful, she spoke through the link while he continued to rub her. Should I stop now? They might catch us, you know, he suddenly spoke as the blonde began to pull his hand back when her soft hand held it, pulling him back in. And no, keep doing it, Kushina muttered in the link with a scarlet blush on her face, her breathing heavy while Naruto inwardly grinned, currently eating ramen with his left hand holding the chopsticks. Meanwhile, Ayumi had a proud smile on her face as she watched Naruto seduce Kushina like that. Whenever her blonde lover was free, she would give him lessons about what she dubbed as sex and seduction. And here was her Naruto, pulling it off like a pro. Ayumi however smiled while shaking her head as she saw Naruto glance at Kushina, herself seeing the female Uzumaki's tomato face as the whiskered blonde continued to rub her insides. Oh Kushina, you're still so naive, so innocent. But don't worry, my pupil will teach you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.